Good evening, dear students. This is the concluding lecture of Congreve's The Way of the World. In this lecture, I am going to talk about the themes of the play. I would focus on the proviso scene and also on wit and humor. The materials I will provide you in the college website. While talking about the theme of the play, it is very important to come to the title of the play. The title, The Way of the World, in this play focuses on social living. This title, The Way of the World, has been uttered by various characters in the play like Fainall and Mirabell in different contexts. Congreve perhaps wants to suggest that man has no other option but to follow the conventions or the ways of the world in order to live in this society. So, it is definitely our duty to look after the well-being of the people and also to protect the society from the disruptive forces. At the same time, while protecting the society, we should also be conscious of having self-control over ourselves so that we do not lose possession of our own selves. In this play, we find that Mirabell and Millamant are combating this challenge and finally they are emerging victorious because of certain qualities of their own. The well-being of the society can be hampered by two sorts of people. On one hand, we have the sub-intellectuals or the fools, and on the other we have the anti-socials who are to a certain extent villains. Now these sub-intellectuals who by their pretensions and who by their appearances they spread this germ of artificiality in the society. They try to appear what they are not, and in this way they sometimes try to create a kind of different atmosphere where artificiality, pretense, deception is prevalent. On the other hand, we have some antisocials who pollute the total environment and cause harm to others for their own well-being, for their own materialistic gain and for their own prosperity. They cause harm to others. In this play, in the first group, we find Vitude, Petulant, Lady Wishfort, who make plans, who sometimes appear to be very intelligent, but actually they are not. And on the other, in the other group, we find Mrs. Marwood, Mr. Fainall, are such people who deceive, who cheat, who dissemble, who threaten, who blackmail, and also exploit others for their own benefit. For example, we find Mrs. Marwood's pretension that she is a very good friend of Wishfort, but finally cheats her and deceives her. Also, we find it latent in the relationship of Mr. and Mrs. Fainall. Fainall is posing his threat to Mrs. Fainall and to Lady Wishfort, and therefore we come to know that all these relationships are actually based on pretensions and are therefore hollow. And at last we find that when Mr. Fainall is actually providing his threat to Lady Wishfort, she cannot stop herself from saying that, I quote, "This is most inhumanly savage." So in this line, she's trying to point out that this reaction from the son-in-law appears to be too much difficult for her to endure. Congreve tries to hint at the fact that this is not the golden world, where there is no such golden world actually, where people can escape from the reality. On the other hand, we have to accept this gross, uncouth, ruder than Gothic, as Wilful says, that we have to accept this world as it is. And in staying within this world, within this society, we have to think of its positive aspects and we have to provide good examples before these evil people so that at least we can change them them to a certain extent. As there are so many phenols, so many maruds in the society, we cannot kill them literally, but we can definitely reform them by virtuous examples of the innocent and good people. But this is also not so easy, that everything evil can be turned to something good, and this is totally something imaginary, utopia. Thinking in line with Hobbes's Leviathan, Congreve is very much aware of this egotistical instinct that drives men forward. And this is so much ingrained in human nature, this egotistical instinct, that as long as men and women will remain in the society, this ego will prompt them to be more powerful, even if it requires that they should harm others or exploit others. Here, definitely in this play, we find such characters who are making use of this ego for their own gain. On the contrary, we also cannot ignore the selfless love of Mrs. Fenall, who helps in the happy union of Mirabell and Millamant. In spite of all these foolery or this humor of Lady Wishfort, her craze for beauty, we cannot ignore the innate love she has for the daughter, and the love and the care she has for the daughter, and she is even ready to do anything in order to save the life of her daughter and to prevent scandal about her. Congreve relates human nature to two controlling social institutions. I talked about it in my previous lecture also. These two social institutions are wealth and law, and the society is controlled by these two institutions. Very often they can be also treated as ideologies. Most of these social relations, even the relationship of the father and the son, or the father and the mother, the husband and the wife, depends on this wealth and property. During the Restoration period, marriages and love in the aristocratic class were based on the contract of money and property. Genuine love therefore hardly existed. As a contrast to this kind of prevalent relationship based on money, we find that the marriage of Mirabell and Millamant stands as an exception, where love prevails along with rationality. The power of legal control occupies a central standpoint in this plot, and the plot develops around the legal extraction of Millamant's wealth. Mirabell also used legal methods too, but he had to rely on his common sense and worldly wisdom. Mirabell and Millamant can overcome this difficult situation only by their integrity, self-control and rationality. They are the realists who represent the real way of the world as it should be, and men and women should be educated in terms of their rationality. Congreve emphasizes the moral, I quoted from the text, that marriage frauds too often paid in kind. So marriage was mostly based in this kind of deception. Okay. And the marriage frauds should be paid in kind. That means if you deceive others and you marry only for the sake of wealth and money, then surely you are going to be deceived and you are going to be paid for that. Apart from Mirabell and Millamant, we also know that the play represents many pairs of lovers. Money and sex games are associated with love, while the true love of Mirabell and Millamant are based on the prospects of happy married life in future, as we have in the Proviso scene of Act 4. Now, Congreve does not focus much on this falling in love, but on the question of working out a permanent relationship among people who are already in love. The play is thus about human adjustment, human responsibility. Fainall and Mrs. Fainall are examples of couple who have failed to adjust, and therefore their marriage did not prove to be a successful one. It was based on appearances and they lacked faith on each other. Their relationship therefore culminated in failure and incompatibility. As a contrast, Mirabel's responsible action of safeguarding the wealth of Mrs. Fainall, who was his friend, saves the situation. Mirabel and Millament's marriage is therefore sealed with mutual honesty and reciprocal trust, as we find in the Proviso Seal. Millament loves Mirabel, but the admission of love means surrender, and surrender means losing of one's identity in the 17th century society. And Millament, a self-assertive lady, is very much concerned about her identity as a woman. She has the fear that the marriage may reduce her to the position of a wife who will be forced to perform the roles of a wife, being confined within the stereotype roles, being confined within the household affairs. She will not have her own ways. So being an independent woman, Millament's proviso is no coquetry and no feminine vanity. It is definitely her protest, a fight against the position or the repression of women in the society. And she definitely is trying to make her marriage an everlasting one. Millament definitely is fighting for herself and for the rights of women and the survival of the individual with dignity and with self-respect. So, in this play, marriage, love, these are also very prevalent theme where Congreve is trying to show the prevalent concept of marriages based on deceptiveness and falsity and what it should be like as it is shown in the artificial sort of proviso scene which we have in Act 4. What is interesting in the proviso scene or the bargaining scene is that Mirabel and Millament meet each other as rational human beings and not as lovers. So this is totally a contrast to the conventional theme of love. So just before marriage, at the time of just before their betrothal, they are meeting each other as rational human beings bargaining with each other. So both are trying to defend their self-integrity and their identity in respective fields. It is not only through proper reasoning that, it is not only through love that marriage can have its firm ground. Along with love, what is also necessary is proper reasoning. So proper reasoning, application of common sense is also required for a happy married life. Congreve makes use of legal terms to show that in a society which is upheld by legal system, human relationships must also be worked out in terms of a contract. Therefore, Millament bargains for a liberty, right for privacy, and the right to meet people whom she desires. In the same way, Mirabel also knows that marriage should also be grounded on respect for each other. The husband should respect the wife should respect the husband. So it is based on mutual trust and understanding. Using the same legal jargon, Mirabel also lists his issues of contract to protect himself from the tyranny of an overpowerful wife, if it happens to be. So, to a certain extent, it induces a kind of intellectual laughter, a fun that the readers enjoy or the audience enjoy. At the same time, the audience are aware of the artificiality of the proviso. And Congreve definitely induces this proviso scene deliberately in order to show that everything that is natural, everything that is instinctual, passionate, does not reveal the real way of the world. So a bit of artificiality is required to fuse with the natural to make it the finally essence of life. And therefore, Congreve deliberately stylizes the scene, as I was saying it, by making it artificial, and this massive message therefore becomes symbolic for the entire society. Human relation survives on self-control, intellectual common sense, and the sense of decorum. The paradox of human life is that art and nature must combine to create this artifice of life. Primitivity and instinct does not lead to a healthy social living. There should always be a marriage of art and nature, which we have already seen before. So, just let us sum up the themes. While speaking of the theme, we have to speak about the basic background of the 17th century, where the social conventions were based on a kind of rationality. At the same time, there was predominance of artificiality. Human relationships were corrupted by the issues of wealth, money, property, power. A group of people were the exploiters who wanted to derive their advantage at the cost of others. This play is definitely a criticism of the concept of love and marriage, and here we have both the concepts of true love and a kind of falsified representation of love, as we see in the relationship of Phenol and Marwood, and we also see in the relationship, though it is a kind of a comic rehearsal, we also find in the relationship of Lady Wishfort, who was mostly eager to make love to Sir Roland or any man, and therefore sex becomes a very important issue here in relation to marriage. Apart from money, this kind of expression of desire or to seek one's position in the society is also one of the prevalent themes. While speaking of the theme, we also need to focus on the position of women in the society, the position of the aristocratic women, where they were made to just adopt the roles of beautiful women, beautifying themselves, making themselves a commodity before the patriarchal society, and their only intention was to attract the attention of the men, make them their partners, so that they can achieve a state of respectability in the society. So these were the markers of respectability. Instead of paying much heed to their self-identity, so to self-respect, they were more concerned in making themselves appear respectable before the society. So this false cover, or this facade of false respectability, or a kind of falsified vision, a kind of artificial society where men were deviating from the basic norms of humanity, were the basic themes of this play. Now, just in this context, I would also like to talk about the concept of wit and humor, and also on the proviso scene. Okay, so proviso scene, as we all know, that the play, as I also told you, has showed many pairs of lovers where money, sex games were associated with love, and they come as a contrast to the love of Mirabell and Millamant. And at the same time, we see that Millamant and Millamant finally succeeds in sealing their relationship with honesty and mutual trust. Millamant loves Mirabell, but she doesn't admit it, and therefore it becomes quite difficult for her to surrender, and she doesn't surrender in front of Mirabell because she feels that in doing it she will lose her identity. And this kind of provisos or laying conditions may to certain extent appear to be artificial, but this is necessary in order to show that it is only through this rationality, through this rational judgment, that marriage can be a happy one. Now, let's move on to the concept of wit and humor. So, this focus or making wit and humor an important ingredient of comedy definitely was an inspiration from Molière. By wit, we refer to an intelligence to perceive and understand the world in better ways. It is the art of speaking pleasantly and also amusingly. Humor, while talking about humor, definitely we should go back to Ben Jonson's concept of humor, which refers to the eccentricities of human behavior, the peculiarity which is there in a person that leads to something peculiar. And in this play we have three humor characters: Lady Wishfort, Petulant, and Sir Wilful. So their eccentricities make us laugh, and they are not consciously witty, but sometimes they appear to be witty. Petulant's humor, we all know, is to contradict. Wilful's humor springs from his rural background, and Lady Wishfort's humor is that she always believes that she is young and beautiful, and these humor characters often make them stock types. Okay, so there is no such depth or complexity in their characters. They are quite flat also. Now, in this play, we also find a marked difference between true wit and false wit, which is relevant in the words or in the conversations of Vitoud and Mirabell. The conversation between Vitoud, Mirabell, or Vitoud and Millamant reveals the contrast. We find that Vitoud makes an appearance of his wit. He is trying to appear what he is not actually. And Mirabell and Millamant possesses those qualities, those accomplishments like polish, sophistication, the ability to juggle with words, the intellect, to use words in appropriate situations, and their wit reveal the person they are actually. It reveals the inner qualities of a gentleman or a lady. On the contrary, the false wit, they pretend to be intellectuals, they march as fools, and they definitely induce comic laughter. Bonamy Dobrik calls these witty repartees, I quote, verbal pyrotechnics. Okay, verbal pyrotechnics. Wit is revealed in the perfect control of the vocabulary, in the polished epigrammatic elegance and the style, the delicate antithetical balance of the sentences, okay, the use of references, the use of images. So wit is revealed through these stylistic features of language. Even we find that Foible is witty enough and intelligent enough. Being a servant, she is also a woman who deserves much appreciation because of his witty remarks and witty comments. Wit involves the imagery that provides a picture of the 17th century life. In the witty conversation, we have references of the trade, commerce, London life, the institutions that were practiced, the position of women, that how these aristocratic class women, they used to make fun of women, how they used to disrespect them, these kind of evil conventions which were prevalent in the society. So all these are relevant in the witty conversations of the men and women in the play. Thus, we may conclude that Congreve's vision thus encompasses the whole of England through his language and stylistic features also. So, these are the basic areas that we have discussed: the theme, the proviso wit and humor. And when you are preparing any answer on this topic, try to include the critics which I have discussed in my previous lecture. So we end the way of the world, the discussion of way of the world, with this lecture, and I request you all to prepare your answers for your exams. Thank you.